Genes are passed down from parents to offspring. My genes are blue. It's diabolical copy in this political climate.
Sydney Sweeney made a pro-white, pro-eugenics ad, and all my fellow advocates for true feminine beauty and justice are righteously protesting. So, Sydney Sweeney made an ad for Calvin Klein jeans that directly parodied Brooke Shields' Calvin Klein ad from 1980.
Genes are fundamental in determining the characteristics of an individual and passing on these characteristics to succeeding generations.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Sydney Sweeney has great genes.
Okay, so now you're in the know, you're hip, you're cool, you're clued up. Let's see some of our righteous protests.
Fascists are unfunny and uncreative, and I think the Sydney Sweeney ad perfectly exemplifies that. Let's talk about it while I have my iced coffee.
She's onto something with it not being super funny, and also uncreative though. Seeing as this is derivative of the Brooke Shields ad, and also women are physically unable to be funny, we all have a chip in our brains preventing this. But the wider takeaway from this little section to me is that she, and the many like her, just can't stand the idea that any kind of art could be engaged with or created by people she doesn't like. Something a lot of leftists like in Praise of Shadows would agree with.
First of which are the very strong beliefs that he seems to hold as important, that are in my opinion the antithesis of what horror should be about. There are many things that are red flags that we could talk about, from the bizarre gun ownership, the flagrant use from my perspective.
So they invent this narrative that conservatives can't create things, and then go right back to watching Markiplier play FNAF.
Beyond being egregious and offensive for a lot of reasons, I think it's just fucking boring and lazy and uncreative and unfunny. And it sounds like something ChatGPT wrote and nobody just thought to raise their hand and was like, yo, this is gonna be a problem. It's the most obvious double entendre that you can make with denim. And that's not to say that you can make pro-eugenics and pro-Nazi propaganda, you just have to be funny about it. No. What I'm saying is that fascists, far-right Republicans, are inherently incapable of being funny and being creative and of making art and of being humorous and being satirical, which is required in advertising and which is required in marketing. You have to be able to see the nuance, the gray area. You have to be able to have empathy, to be able to put yourself in other people's shoes, to be able to read the fucking room. And fascists can't fucking do that because they have a myopic worldview that is like in service of one mission and one mission only.
Oh, she's so close to self-awareness. Also, didn't we leave Everyone's a Fascist back in 2015? No? Jeez. Maybe I'm the one in a myopic world. Maybe I'm the bubble boy. Let's keep watching.
They can only mock and they can only punch down. They can't satirize. So whether or not fascists made the ad or the ad creative team made it to appeal to fascists doesn't fucking matter. The end result is the same. It's fucking boring. It's obvious. Beyond being offensive, it's just bad.
So her argument amounts to, this isn't creative. Okay, sure. Yeah, it isn't. If you don't like that, fair enough. Then the fascist voices in her head chime in with,
White is right and white is good. Keep those.
And she assumes you can hear them too. I don't know where they enter in this discussion otherwise. Less understandable. I do not in fact have any holes in my brain, if you can believe that, so I can't relate. People have been complaining about how gaslighting and emotional labor have become meaningless in the last few years, but I think fascist has well and truly lost all meaning. Fascism, in case you've forgotten, which is honestly understandable, is a political category denoting an authoritarian dictatorship style of government, with an emphasis on nationalistic pride, often with racial pride alongside that. No single one of these things is fascism, however much it might suck. You can be a nationalist but not care for dictators or the ethno-state, and you could in theory also be the Ted Kaczynski of the ethno-state and reject all organised government and shoot anyone darker than an uncooked Cumberland sausage on sight. You can also be a paternalistic authoritarian with no principles of any kind, left-wing or right-wing. None of these three stances are themselves fascist. You don't have to mislabel them fascist in order to express that you don't like them. If you're a woman with an active TikTok account, it's probably safe to assume you don't like nationalism, white ethno-nats, or the Online Safety Act. There's a lot of agreement and finger wagging in the comments under this completely brain-dead video, and one popular comment under this says they could have just had people of different races. But why would they have to do that in order to convince you that they're not racist over at Calvin Klein? Why can it be, as many of these comments say, a brown woman in the ad by herself, but not a blonde one? That's racist, frankly. No, genuinely, I'm not just being funny. She's being viewed and treated differently because she's blonde, and these commenters have the entitlement to think that that's on her and not them. These people all seem very threatened by a good-looking white woman not being apologetic about what she is, and as a result are seeing spooks where they just aren't, like some sort of mass paranoid delusion. So what if the lines in the ad were a joke about her being blonde? Is she not allowed to acknowledge this unless she's self-flagellating? The argument made most often here is that this is insidious in the context of the political climate we're in, as this TikToker said as well. And while the pendulum is swinging to the right, an atmosphere where a blonde woman just being is any kind of dog whistle really isn't the kind of climate we're in at all, and thank goodness for that. The notion of the pendulum swing is only relative by nature too. We've been living in a very left-wing climate for decades, and our establishments in the West all lean very heavily left as well, even to this day. The next step to the right of that isn't Nazism. It's almost like there's a desire for this to be a dog whistle, a desire for the climate to be that dire so that there's something to panic about. Anyway, next one.
Sydney Sweeney has great jeans. Jeans made with 100% white cotton. These jeans are so pure, all the other jeans should be set on fire. These mixed polyester jeans should be rounded up and exterminated. We at American Eagle want one thing for the future. A place where one jean prevails. Come get them for $19.99 at our sweet summer sale.
This would be funnier if the point wasn't completely off the mark. They invent these narratives around race, sex, and orientation just to get themselves upset about it. But on the way, they get so deep into the delusion themselves that they even create comedy based on this imaginary world they've created. It could really be a fascinating social study, honestly. Next one.
Good girl in a straw hat with her arms out in a cornfield. That is a scarecrow.
Eugenics is when you advocate for the destruction of a group of people based on their genes. You know, like killing all unborn children with Down syndrome. That's eugenics. Incidentally, curing kids with Down syndrome in the womb and nurturing them throughout their lives is not eugenics. Even if you wanted to argue that this is some sort of call to arms for white supremacists, how is a white woman saying that she has great genes because she is white equivalent to calling for the extermination of everyone else based on their genotypes? So they've read the ad as a pro-white rallying call, and then taken a complete extra step all on their own. This is the thing with these armchair activists. They have this narcissistic drive to be the main character and the hero, and it's so intense that it's not enough for them to just not like something, or to even just have an ideological opponent. That ideological opponent has to be the most cartoonishly evil, degenerate scumbag in human history. Even if you do buy for some reason that this Sydney Sweeney ad is pro-white, it doesn't follow inherently that pro-white is anti-everything else. And it definitely doesn't follow that pro-white is pro-white ethnostate. That doesn't make any sense. It's also not lost on me on this topic that pro-white is so bad and a precursor to horrible things. And yeah, ethnocentrism is cringe, to be honest. So that white-only community in Arkansas was demonic, of course. But they didn't complain about freedom, the black-only community in Georgia. The backlash for that has been a drop in the ocean compared to the reaction to the Arkansas community. So white-only, bad. Black-only, empowered. Hey, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just noticing. I'm noticing.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue. Okay, I'm a sucker for silly accent and silly face. I'm a toddler. I'm a literal toddler. Jangle keys at me, please. This is a common thread as well when you see leftist TikTok talking about white people in racial discourse. They just hate them, including the white people in that group. They hate themselves. They have nothing but praise for every other ethnicity on God's blessed earth, but only contempt for white people. They invoke, like this, they invoke hick stereotypes and other classist archetypes, anything to bash a white person for being white. I don't even have a problem with racist jokes. They're an easy win. Easy gasp in front of a crowd, great. But these are the same people that build their identities on being seen as progressive, and you can just see through it. And they don't. They never do. It's all so tiresome.
I don't think Sydney Sweeney is a Nazi. I don't think Sydney Sweeney is a fascist. I think she's just pretty. And that's why they say if she has good genes. Because she's pretty. She's not ugly. A Nazi? What?
Oh shit, do we have a reasonable take on TikTok.com? This is the crux of the whole joke. She's pretty. She has great genes. Had Sydney Sweeney been just as gorgeous and a natural redhead or a black woman or some mix of ethnicities, she could still read the ad the way she did, word for word, and you know why? Because it's about her being pretty. And it's a reference to a Brooke Shields ad. This woman is kind of getting dogpiled in the comments, so if you waste your life on TikTok like I do, feel free to leave her a nice, sane comment. Is the next one going to be reasonable too?
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring. My genes are blue. It's diabolical copy in this political climate.
Nope.
Let's talk about that American Eagle Sydney Sweeney ad and Eugenics dog whistles. We can't keep pretending that media and marketing exist in a vacuum. That ad doesn't exist without the culture it's selling into. This is American Eagle's most expensive ad to date, meaning that nothing in this ad was accidental. And there was a decision made about what cultural cues they wanted to sell to in this ad. I want to break down 2 specific ads in this campaign.
My body's composition is determined by my genes.
Sydney Sweeney has great genes.
This whole ad relies on the double entendre of genes and genes. It's more than a cheeky wordplay, it's a dog whistle.
She's right that nothing put into an ad campaign is accidental. It isn't. But neither is every possible takeaway from an ad campaign intentional. Even if the advertisers wanted to, it just isn't even possible to anticipate every possible takeaway from what you produce. English teachers, this is why you teach your students, and don't be afraid to, that not every interpretation of a piece of media is heckin' valid. It isn't. Her perception of this ad is very, very tinted by her own belief systems, to the point that she can't see through the more obvious message of this ad as anything more than a veil for a grander, more complicated conspiracy.
We are seeing the rise of fascism in America. And with this comes this rise of eugenics. To put it simply, eugenics is the belief that some people have better genes than others.
No, I see you. See how the goalposts get moved bit by bit? They think you won't notice. This is not what eugenics means. Eugenics is a few steps beyond thinking some genes are better than others. It's thinking some gene pools shouldn't survive because they're worse than others, never mind that they're inferior, and then that it's necessary to take action to wipe those gene pools out. Let's see how honest the rest of the video will be.
Just to let you guess what people fall into which categories. In eugenicist thinking, society encourages certain people to reproduce while discouraging others, and in some cases, even preventing others through forced sterilization. In this ad, by saying my body's composition is determined by my genes, Sydney Sweeney has great genes, it's saying that Sydney Sweeney has a great body and therefore great genes, and therefore is a product of genetic superiority. Specifically saying these white, thin, traditionally feminine bodies are not just aspirational, but symbols of morality, tradition, purity.
She's doing it again, moving goalposts, putting words in the advertisers' mouths. She took her interpretation of the ad, that it's saying that Sydney Sweeney's body and also all white thin bodies are meant to represent morality, tradition, and purity. As a reminder, this is all because a pretty woman said she had good genes in an ad whilst the camera zoomed in on her breasts. It's not hard, but again, people like this TikToker desperately want it to be more complicated than it is, just to justify their revulsion at Sydney Sweeney in particular, often seen as a darling of the right, being marketed as pretty and not reading off some self-flagellating script with a caveat to remind you that non-blondes are really, really beautiful too.
I think the next ad takes it even further.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Sydney Sweeney has great genes.
My genes are blue is crazy work. Once again, it's the double entendre of blue jeans, meaning like the physical denim, and her blue eyes. It's echoing the language of white purity politics and the purity of blonde hair and blue eyes. Historic fascist regimes have weaponized the feminine ideal. Femininity linked to motherhood, reproduction, fertility, beauty. Women deemed desirable by the state are seen as carriers of racial and cultural purity. Sydney Sweeney's blonde-haired, blue-eyed, thin, voluptuous, and all the right places body is being presented as a lineage of genes worthy of reproduction.
While it's absolutely not true that every criticism by a woman of another pretty woman is rooted in jealousy, sometimes you can just feel the envy coming through the screen, and a lot of these arguments are just cope, really, and you can tell. Okay, I'm starting to see what's going on with this person. She doesn't know what sexual selection is, that's the issue. She thinks beauty is purely social and has no reason to exist at all. For her benefit, we and every animal that has ever existed is attracted to curves in the right places because we are attracted to features that denote fertility and strength. Big bazongas, big malones, if you will, generally denote well-functioning breasts and speak to a part of our mammalian nature that reminds us that our children need to breastfeed. And also that if someone has grown up being curvy in the right places, they've got access to enough food and resources to let that happen, so they're a good choice of mate. This is what, year 6 biology? You learn this when you're about 11 or 12, but you intuit it as soon as you learn what animals are and about evolution. What a weird conclusion this woman's reached, truly.
And it positions her within this larger trend of white femininity being used to justify regressive politics. Even if you want to say it's a reach, it's not. This language has cultural context. And by making an emphasis on Sydney Sweeney's genes with a G, saying that Sydney Sweeney is not just beautiful, but her blue genes are worthy of replication. No, I really don't think this is an accident. We're seeing a rise of anti-woke consumer branding. This campaign was engineered to resonate with a very specific audience. Conservative coded branding is selling right now. And even American Eagle, which was kind of like one of the big brands in the body positivity movement, it's not selling anymore. Done. It's about market alignment, and unfortunately, their stock soared really after this launch. And I know you might be tempted to say it's not that deep, but I beg you to push back on that line of thinking, because this is how ideology spreads. It's not that deep until it's too late.
It's not a reach, trust me, just trust me. I think she spent about a minute just repeating the same non-point back to back. Beauty is considered worthy of replication on the deepest level in any animal, and no, that doesn't mean your favourite novel, The Handmaid's Tale, is coming to a town near you. Next!
Sydney Sweeney has great genes. Sydney Sweeney's genes, with American Eagle, had the butterfly on them because she supports domestic violence awareness. Why would you pair a domestic violence awareness message with this hypersexualization of Sydney Sweeney? And there's the full mockery as well of objectification when Sydney is like, hey, my eyes are up here. And obviously this hasn't just come from Sydney Sweeney, like it's come from a whole marketing team. But why would that ever be a good idea? A lack of regard for objectification and this hypersexualization of Sydney Sweeney should not be used to perpetuate a domestic violence campaign message. If anything, they contribute to domestic violence. It's going to frustrate men because they're going to think that actually we don't have body autonomy and we're always sexually available. And when somebody tries to break that mold, it's like, well, no, because we've been shown otherwise.
This is an interesting factoid that I haven't seen massively substantiated. Apparently proceeds from the campaign are being donated to the crisis hotline, and while this is reported by reputable rags like The Telegraph, you'd think they'd reference this more explicitly to encourage purchases, or at least to win public favour, if nothing else. And Sweeney does seem passionate about this topic, starring in a biopic about a boxer and domestic abuse survivor, Christy Martin. As for the social commentary she offers, 50-50? I agree that sexualized imagery doesn't necessarily pair with every message, including a domestic violence awareness message that you want to see taken seriously. But I don't agree with her take that one woman being sexy and sexualizing herself at work harms all the others. I mean, she's a model. It's her job. I don't think anyone except the absolute, truly brain-dead dregs sees a model in a denim ad being sexy and thinks that's an invitation from the other 4 billion women on Earth. That doesn't make sense, even in a very warped, paranoid mind. I think she'd have more of a point if she was making a comment about how sex is something private, and that's why sharing sexualized imagery of yourself isn't a good thing to do, and then how that has a knock-on effect on the overall degeneracy of the culture, but that doesn't seem like it's her take. Maybe I'm desensitized, but I also don't think this campaign is all that egregiously sexualized anyway. It's sexualized imagery, it's just not emblematic of societal downfall. It's not that deep, basically. This is quite a prevalent point of view amongst certain younger feminists at the moment. On the one hand, you have the being a whore is great actually kind of stance, and then on the other you have the complete opposite, which amounts to nobody should be pretty because that's adhering to society's standards. Anyway, here are strict rules about how not to adhere to those standards according to me, and I will be judging you. And yeah, hey, that's all of them. If there's anything I agree with amongst all the criticisms of this particular ad by Sydney Sweeney, it's these two things. That choosing to directly reference the Brooke Shields Calvin Klein ad bad so directly is weird, given that she was a child aged 15 and posing in a way that I don't think is appropriate for a child, even if it's not the most sexualized performance in human history. Like, that's still weird, that's still not okay. I also think this was a risky time to do this ad with a white blonde woman, not because Lewhitey bad, but because of the backlash that we're seeing. There really is a racism problem going on, and while racism against non-white people is also on the uptick at the moment, that's not what I mean. It's become so normal amongst the dominant culture to hate white people. I mean really hate them, and also to hate women and stomp on their rights. So a white woman getting up on film and talking about her great genes was always going to be viewed as about her being a white woman, as opposed to her just being a pretty model, which is the obvious joke. Hence all the tantrums. But maybe we needed something like this to once again make the anti-white hatred obvious, but also to push back against this narrative. You'll have to let me know your thoughts in the comments because that is all for now. I want you to put your pronouns as well as your thoughts and your genes, your entire genome sequence, down in that comment section, and I'll see you next time.